Welcome to Relational Lives. We have a very special episode today for Pride Month, which is in June in the UK. And we have a special guest, Robyn. Robyn is a trans woman and she's delighted to be here to share her story and to bring more awareness to the trans community, to the LGBTQ community. If you like this episode, please do like, subscribe to our channel and make sure that it's shared with other people.
Excited to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you've already kind of said it in the intro, I think. It is Pride Month, and at a time when I think kind of across the world it feels a little bit like trans rights are under threat and being rolled back on a little, it feels really important to kind of put some positive messaging out there. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
I think it's really important to share this because people that don't understand don't choose to hear the stories, to hear people's experiences, and I just think it's so helpful to
I think the
share.
personal experiences are much more impactful and meaningful.
Yes,
because they're real.
Well, I think you can, and people do, and lawmakers, and from lawmakers to people in bars can get wrapped around the axles of the definition and the labels that we put on people. And the queer community across the LGBT community are or can be as guilty of that as anyone else. But it's fundamentally, we're all human beings, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So it almost doesn't matter what your experience is. It's, wow, we're all people.
We are all the same people.
Yeah.
We're all human beings.
Yeah.
But we'd love to hear more about your story. And I think one of the questions I have, and many people, may have, it's a curiosity, is when did you first realise that Robyn was a part of you?
I mean, I will say that at this point I have done a lot of work around this. Yeah, I've done the work in therapy. So if some of this sounds almost kind of rehearsed, this is a story I've told before.
Yeah.
But I think my experience, and this is my experience, not, I have no right to talk for other trans people. Almost as early as I can remember of being aware of femininity, I was kind of drawn to wanting to experience it.
Okay.
And I did not have the knowledge or the words to know what that meant then. But I can remember as a boy, like probably all boys do in puberty, Mum had catalogues selling, women's clothes and full of pictures of women, very clean, very wholesome, but wanting to experience being that person, not to look at them, but to be them. And I did not have the words for that then. 11, 12 years old, I did not understand what that meant.
Okay.
Growing up in quite a sheltered community, not a hugely communicative family, pre-internet, understanding that there was a word for what I was experiencing, and probably call it gender incongruence, even as early as then.
You did understand that?
No, gosh, no. I just knew that was a thing.
Okay.
But I didn't really know what to do about it. So I think...
Did it feel wrong?
It didn't feel right.
It didn't feel right, okay.
And I think that certainly growing up with a kind of an understanding of, I suppose, stereotypical gender roles, that, boys played football in the park or, and girls played with dolls. That was,
and it was a clear division then, wasn't it?
There were 100%. There were boys and girls, and there was no one in between.
Blues
and there
pinks.
was no concept or no understanding for me that people could choose.
No.
And what was that like for you?
Probably just acceptance.
Okay.
With the sense of, I wish this wasn't a thing. This isn't right. It doesn't feel comfortable. It's a little bit like having a stone in my shoe. It doesn't stop me from doing anything, but it's just not...
Didn't feel right.
Yeah. And just kind of being aware of it all the time. And I've always kind of framed this whole journey through the lens of kind of awareness and acceptance and embracing it.
Mm-hmm.
So being aware that there is something there that I want to experience, to try, to express, but not being very comfortable with it because society puts those expectations on people.
Yeah.
Be a boy. To accepting that it is a thing and I can give it a name and I know it's a thing, whether I want to, and I need to explore it, to then understanding that, oh my God, this is me. This just, the stone is out of my shoe. This just fits like a glove.
Gosh,
and
so
that's the
what
embracing.
a change, and from that 11-year-old boy that you were with the stone in your shoe to now.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Did anyone know about it then? Did you tell anyone?
Gosh, no. No. Because I think there's pre-internet, there was no sense that there were other people like me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there was no sense that there was a name for it. And I remember, I don't know, fast forward 10 years, and back when kind of paper magazines, glossy lads mags, and they had all the classified ads at the back. And there was it was kind of like it's a cross-dressing makeover service in London.
Okay.
And that was maybe the first time that I knew that there was a name for this. And if there was a business, then there must be other people like me. And it was just kind of like, oh, wow, that's really exciting. That's interesting. But
you still remember that moment?
Yeah.
Really it's interesting how those moments stick, isn't it?
Yes.
Those sort of just pivot
stand
points.
out.
I think, anybody else, certainly in this country, that has kind of been on a similar journey will know and will remember those ads.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name the business. But we started at this point talking about shame.
Mm-hmm.
This was a small classified ad at the back of a magazine. It was quite seedy. It was quite disreputable, and it talked a lot about discretion and privacy. And so there was always that sense. Yeah, there was always that sense that this is not something to be shared.
You shouldn't be proud of it.
Secret.
Yeah. So even if you accept that it's a part of you, it's not something to be embraced and celebrated.
Which therefore would understandably easily equal shame.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. And so I suppose even people somewhere within the big trans kind of dance tent, were still telling other people with some form of trans identity that this is something to be
this is not
ashamed
okay
of,
in some
kept
way.
hidden. We can help you. We can certainly take your money from you, but we're not going to help you love yourself.
And it's in the back of the magazine in the sort of seedy section.
Yeah.
It's so mixed, isn't it? In terms of, I imagine, there is a name for this. There's something that feels somewhere, not quite a name, but getting something which feels, there is something. And yet, like you say, back of the magazine, there is something that's secret around this.
Yeah.
What an interesting mix for you, I imagine, at that time.
Yeah, it really was. And it certainly didn't kind of help with moving from that phase of acceptance that there is this thing about me that I need to explore. It certainly didn't help with the move to embracing.
Okay, so it didn't help.
No, not at all. And it took a really long time to probably make peace with myself and to find a place in the world where I could really explore that. And listen, this snowball's gathering pace.
Are you able to share a little bit about the evolution of Robyn?
I've got a question first.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Did you go for the makeover?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was that like?
Amazing and awful in pretty equal measure, actually.
That's why I'm interested in that mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first time I went, let me roll back on that a touch, if I may. And if this is a boring story, that's what the edit's for, right?
Boring,
chose a career when I was quite young that, super hyper masculine, joined the army, partly to get away from the town I grew up in, and partly because, hyper masculine career, and play rugby and contact sports and boys, running, jumping, climbing trees kind of life. And there was a real part of that culture that was nights out and drag. It was a very rugby club type culture of, hey, everyone let's dress up like a granny and go out. And I'll admit it now that that stash of women's clothing that I had was far more than fancy dress to go out. It was it was really dear to me at the time. But it was maybe my mid-20s by the time I sort of went, I really want to go out and I want to do this properly and experience that makeover. And when the opportunity came round, my little heart was beating out my chest. I probably walked past the shop 3 or 4 times, convinced that everybody in the street could see, why I was there. That big flashing neon sign above my head that said trans person. And seeing myself made over was so transformative. It was like a different person staring back at me from the mirror.
And that must have felt extraordinary inside.
Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to say. It was just.
Can you describe how it felt in you?
I think for the first time, it felt like me looking back at myself in the mirror.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a very, in hindsight, observation.
Yeah.
At the time, there was just this kind of amazing sense of euphoria. Yeah. Yeah. It was just, oh, gosh. This is the thing. It was 100% tempered still by, we've talked about shame already. The store itself was this really seedy old kind of like sex shop type vibe. Big metal shutters in the mirror, in the windows, a buzzer on the door. It's that kind of airlock sense of, we will do an amazing job of cleaning you up before you leave. No, there will not be a trace of makeup. So even though it was a really celebratory and euphoric experience, still tempered with that sense of shame, which was tough. Yeah, which was really tough.
Gosh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So you had to get cleaned up.
Yeah.
Take it all off.
Yeah.
Leave. What was that like?
I am the sort of person that processes things quite slowly. So it was just, okay, this experience is over. Let's go away and think about that. I think I knew that it was something I needed to explore more, even if without necessarily a sense of how and where. And for quite a while, Robyn existed in the sense of those kind of makeover transformation services.
So you were living a hyper-masculine life, being in the armed forces, being a man.
And once a quarter, tops, being able to kind of go away and for 4 hours. And I don't know that I would have expressed that as necessarily a different persona in the sense that I would now. It was just almost like a relief valve. It was there is this thing, and I don't know what it is. I don't want to be trans. I do not want to be a trans woman. I like this. This is not kind of okay. This is going to make my life very, very difficult. But there is this pressure building up of saying, well, do you know what? With the benefit of hindsight, I just am. Yeah. It took me a long time to kind of just accept that. So all of the time there was that just every 3 months I'm going to go and I'm going to go let someone do my makeup and I'm going to borrow some clothes and I'm going to have some photos taken, which I'll probably delete afterwards. But it is just that relief of being able to express myself even in just a very small way.
And no one else knew.
I had 2 relationships in that time where we expressed that. One of those could have been a very supportive relationship, but actually I bottled that. I screwed that up because I was just not okay with anybody knowing my secret in the end. Even
The
though,
shame.
Yeah, yeah. And, even though that was someone who would have been, I think, a great ally, very supportive. The other relationship was pretty toxic with someone who weaponized it. And, that really didn't help, actually. The sense of, you are not good enough, you are not enough of a man because of this. I will tell everybody if you don't. That was a pretty toxic time. Yeah. Wasn't great.
No.
Long time ago, though. So, done now. But I will say that, eventually finding those people and finding that community and finding that, I think I call it like my pack. But
How did you find your community? Because things are very different now, aren't they? With the internet, like you said, when you were younger, there was no internet. There was just these adverts in the back of a magazine, which meant that you knew there were other people like you.
Yeah.
But now there is a lot more.
So I think I came to accept and embrace the fact that I identified as a crossdresser, and the cross-dressing community does run its kind of events, and there are meetups in bars and clubs, and sometimes that's a queer bar, sometimes that's a straight bar, sometimes and moved to a new part of the world, moved to the south coast in the UK, having just left the army, and it was the desire to kind of, this is going to be a new start, it's going to be a new chapter in my life. Not necessarily the trans chapter in my life, just a
new chapter.
Yeah, next phase. And oh my gosh, there is a regular kind of cross-dressers meetup here, and we can go to this.
Yeah.
And just being out in the world. That was the start, I think, of building my little pack here. At the same time as making new friends, and there's something about new friends that makes it easier to be my slightly more authentic self, because
meeting them as Robyn.
Yeah.
So they already know.
Yeah. And because I'm not coming from a position of having hidden something from someone for a really long time.
And we're very fortunate, aren't we, to live near Brighton.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is very, very LGBTQ.
Queer capital of the UK, and that kind of resonates outwards.
Yeah. So over time, you've met more of the community. You've felt more confident.
I think the kind of final step in the journey so far at least, is that I don't think I would ever describe myself as having had dysphoria in the sense of being unhappy as a man. I wasn't. But experiencing life and being treated as a woman gave me an amazing sense of euphoria. And it's all the way back to that looking in the mirror, that first kind of transformation makeover day is, oh my gosh, this just feels so much more right. This just fits. This is the life I want to lead. Getting that acceptance from a community, and not just of other trans people, but just of other people. That's the bit that made me go, do you know what? This is for me. That was a really kind of lovely little final step.
Yeah, I can see on your face that, you're smiling. That feels like that's really, like you say, really important. Yeah. That you could be you.
Yeah. And I'm realistic. I think people in the trans community put an enormous amount of value on passing, and I understand why. It's hard to be as visible as we are. It is hard to know that you kind of walk down the street or through a shop or into a bar, and people will, a little bit of a nudge and a nod. But that's okay. That's who I am.
How do you feel when you notice that happening?
I don't love it.
No.
I don't think anybody'd love that kind of thing.
No.
But I'm realistic. You know, I'm really tall.
If someone's watching this, right, and they are maybe keeping things hidden and they're wanting to be more out, and they're aware that they might have that kind of reaction, how would you recommend they manage that? How would you say that it'd be best to deal with that?
I think there are two kinds of people in our lives, right? There are people who matter and there are people who don't matter. And if the people that matter to you, the people around you, accept you and love you for who you are, and they will if you are being who you are, the people that the nudgers, the whisperers, they don't matter. They are living such small lives.
It's not giving your power away, isn't it? In a way, it's not giving any power to them because there's nothing in it.
It's power stuff. Or it's joy. Honestly, this life is joyful. No one chooses to be, or in my experience at least, no one chooses to be somewhere within that trans community because they just fancy a fight for the next 40 years.
No.
We choose this because it brings us joy.
Yeah.
If choose is probably the wrong word. It's just this
It
brings
is
us joy. So why just the people that want to pop that joyful balloon? Well, we've talked about swearing. Screw them. They don't matter.
No.
They don't matter. They are sad, miserable, joyless people.
Yeah, and there's the queer community. I just think there's such an openness, isn't there? There's a just different feel to that community. Sometimes there is that joy.
I'm always kind of reluctant or mindful of kind of appropriating queer identities because the overwhelming majority of my life, externally at least, I was a straight cis man. But what I will say is that surrounding myself as I do now with queer people to a large extent, these are all people who've done the work.
Yeah.
Because we none of us fit with that societal boys do this, girls do that.
So you've had to do the work in a
Yeah.
way.
You've had to kind of accept that there is this part of you that doesn't conform to that societal expectation of, play football, play with dolls. This is who you can sleep with. This is who you should marry. This is what you should do next. If you don't conform with that, there is an amount of work to be done on accepting and embracing that for yourself. And by and large, queer people have done that to come to terms with their identity.
And I think then they're more accepting of others as well, because
they've done that.
Yeah.
To have got to that stage as well, because I guess, like you say, it's been an evolution for you, hasn't it? For the boy at 11 or whatever to Robyn now, and all those steps that you've gone through to get to this place, and then in a community where you feel like you can be you. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. We are in this kind of wild moment where I suppose the boundaries and the barriers between queer and straight identities are kind of being a little bit blurred.
Well, particularly with the recent UK law. I know it's a really big one. And those, I don't know whether you want to say a little bit about that to those who might not know about it or who are in a different country, but how... Yeah, perhaps you could. You've got the best voice for that.
I am not a constitutional lawyer. I am an outraged trans woman. But the Supreme Court in the UK has decreed that the defining characteristics of sex, male or female, is biology. So depending on the sex that was assigned to you at birth, that defines you for the rest of your life, regardless of any gender reassignment that you may undergo, regardless of your gender identity, regardless of how you live your life. So in the eyes of the law in the UK now, we're in this extraordinary situation where even I need to get this right, trans women are men and trans men are women.
In the law.
And I mean, of course, can understand the anger and the fury and all the frustration, all those emotions, I'm sure, and many more. How has this most impacted you?
I think in two ways. That there is a practical and a day-to-day way in which this law is being implemented already in less than 2 weeks, where the Human Rights Commission, of all people, has said that trans women should not be using female toilets, and trans men should not be using men's toilets. Also, trans men should not be using women's toilets in case they alarm the women because they look so much like men, because that's who they are.
So where do they go to the loo?
Well, and this is the kind of practical application of that law. Is it makes trans people reluctant to go out, because do you know what, if I go out for a coffee or for drinks with friends, I just want to go to the loo. I don't want to battle. I don't want to fight. I don't want to have to ask for the key to the special toilets. Like
anybody else who needs to go to the loo, you want to go to the loo. Yeah.
So it has the effect of removing or of stopping trans people wanting to be out in public and removing us from sight. And
has it prevented you from going out more?
Yeah, it has.
Oh,
the first day when that Supreme Court ruling was passed down, and I was supposed to be out with a friend that night, who is an amazing ally and accepts me as nothing other than a woman. And I couldn't leave the house. I could not leave the house. Sorry, I said I wouldn't do this.
No, it's understandably really, really tough.
Yeah, and since then, I've been out and into non-explicitly queer spaces, and I feel more uncomfortable than I used to.
Okay,
and
so understandable.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you, with that law that's there? Why wouldn't you?
Well, I think the other side of it is that on the one hand, the law. It's just really, the actual law says that trans women can't use women's toilets. That is just.
And in this day and age,
right? Because it's not I mean, I am so angry about this because it's so nonsensical. But the other side of it, and the other really kind of practical thing, is that the bigots, the people that 3 months ago might have just had a nod and a snigger behind your back, well, screw them. Now they feel emboldened, and now they feel able to be in your face. And as wonderful as the internet and social media can be for creating communities, it also creates spaces for people to share those bad stories. And so trans people, unfortunately it's happened to me already, of people, well, you're not a woman. You'll never be a woman. The law says that you are a man. Why are you dressing like that? And that is not something that would have happened before that court ruling.
So you've noticed.
So they feel like
change.
their voice is more valid now. They feel like
yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about the famous author of, in my opinion, fairly average children's literature, and her celebratory stance on this court ruling. But that cascades down to people in the street and to people in the pubs.
Yeah.
And for all that there are a lot of amazing allies out there and people that want to support communities and people and human beings, there are unfortunately others who don't. who feel like they're on the right side of history at the moment.
There's a lot of polarising going on at the moment as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. You know, honestly, I think on a societal level, we've always needed to have an other. We've always needed to have someone to shun and to cast out.
Yeah.
And right now, unfortunately, you know, trans people, we're in the firing line. We talked about the queer community.
Yeah.
For all that, by and large, it has been accepting, but there are people within the queer community who want to pull up the ladder behind the rights and the equal rights that they've won. I've seen gay men talking about, well, yeah, trans people don't belong. And, you know, well, we won our fight by and large in the 90s and noughties. We don't want to keep fighting for trans people.
Yeah.
You know, if it's our turn to be whipped, that's not really okay.
No.
But just everybody needs to know that, you know, it's going to be someone else's turn next.
Yeah.
On a more hopeful level,
Yeah.
what we spoke about with you when we had our sort of pre-chat was the hope for what can change with the future generations. Say a little bit about that, what your hope is here.
I think history tells us the history of queer rights, equal rights, tells us that, you know, there's a really clear direction of travel. Okay, and in this country we had something called Section 28 in the 80s and 90s that suppressed, that there was the government suppressing the spreading of information about gay relationships. And then that was repealed. And now we have kind of universal right to marry between same-sex couples, and to adopt and to raise families, and those identities really protected. That's the direction of travel.
Yeah.
If this is the Section 28 moment for trans people, and I'm really careful of not appropriating that, but this will get better. That actually, for me at least, being trans is about joy. It is about living a more joyful life. And the more we spread that message, the more we tell people, you know, this isn't, we're not trying to threaten anybody.
Yeah.
We're just trying to be joyful.
And who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to be joyful?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And,
right.
and live your authentic life.
Yeah.
To be you.
Yeah, 100%. So this will get better. This will, you know, in 20 years' time, this will be forgotten about. I really hope we haven't moved on to someone else.
Yes.
But this will get better. And the tiny, tiny, tiny small numbers of us that there are will just be living our little joyful lives.
Yeah.
That's what I hope for.
Yeah.
That's a lovely note to end on, I think,
It is
isn't
a
it?
lovely
And
note
that's
to
what
end on.
queer joy is about.
Yeah, 100%. Gosh, are we done already?
So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me.
It's been amazing, and
Yeah.
hopefully, you know, this is going to be very, very
Really helpful to hear for our people who are watching us and people who are joining us all the time. This will be always there for them to be able to see. So thank you.
Is there a final message you'd want to give to anyone, maybe a young person or even anyone really, who is in your position or has been in the position you were in, where there's a part of them that they want to express?
Well, it doesn't go away.
Right.
It doesn't go away. It's not something that you can suppress.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't mean you need to leap in with both feet. It's been several years. It's been a 30+ year journey for me.
Can I just add in one more? I know I'm extending it a little bit, but you said that you're going, in the process of going through medical and social transitioning, and that there are still some areas in your life where you're not out. So what's that? What is that like for you?
It gets harder every day. if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my kind of, I started by thinking, well, I will deal with work and the people that who know me professionally. I'll deal with that kind of when I have to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something I relish, because I don't want it to be the topic of conversation.
No.
I go to work, I want to talk about, I don't want to, but I go to work to talk about work things,
Mm-hmm.
not, but it feels harder and harder and harder to not be that kind of authentic version of myself. And it feels like lying. It feels like lying. And that...
Well, I guess it is lying.
Yeah.
It's lying of omission, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is that bit. It's just...
You don't want to be lying.
Away.
Yeah. No. So there's some lovely messages that you have for people in, maybe who've experiencing the same thing or something of the same thing, or who have got questions about themselves. But like you say, that message that it doesn't go away. It's not going to go away if somebody's feeling like they're not living in their own authentic self, in their own authentic body.
In my experience, at least, for every hater and for every bigot and for every transphobe out there are far more supportive, embracing people who love us for who we are, for human beings, because there's so much more to us than just being trans.
Of course.
And those are the people to concentrate on. Those are the people to
find
attach
your
yourself
allies,
to.
find your communities.
Yeah.
So find your pack, I think you said, didn't you? So for people to find their pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Robyn.
Thank you again.
No, thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for watching and listening. I hope you've really enjoyed listening to Robyn today. If you would like to, please subscribe, like. It all helps us get the word out and get our podcasts and our channel out to people. If there's anything that you would like discussed on a future episode, please get in touch with us. And so once again, thank you, Robyn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you.